Good evening, 49er faithful. The Niners have wrapped up OTAs, minicamp. It is on to training camp at some point. But first, we've got to break down everything that has gone on up to this point. And as always, you have your two faithful hosts, Rob Schuh and my co-host, Randon McMahon. Randon, how are you doing? We're in this home stretch headed towards training camp. Do you feel like we're closer to football? We're like, what, 90-something days away. How you feeling?
We got the dead period coming up, but this is the last hurrah. You're getting all the water, all the booze, you're dancing, and then you got to cross the desert into new territory. Who knows what goes on in the desert? But all I'm worried about now is all the juicy, spicy details, and we're going to talk about it here.
Yes, we are definitely going to get into the juicy details here. We've had some great practice reports coming out, some good quotes coming out from coaches, players, you name it. First topic that's on everybody's mind that we just can't seem to stop talking about as the San Francisco 49ers is quarterback. It is just constantly a conversation. Obviously, we have had some updates on Brock Purdy. He has started throwing. There is the expectation of when he is going to be ready. It certainly seems like if everything goes according to plan, there's at least the possibility that he's going to be ready for week one. What are you making of the comments so far? And what is your belief at this point? I know you had held on to that idea of Brock potentially starting on PUP. It seemed reasonable to me that could be an outcome given the timing of the surgery. Where are you at now?
So let's talk about the actual quote. It's from Mayoko. We'll give him credit there. But then now, after he put out his little snippet, he's attacking people on Twitter about not covering his quote correctly, right? So it's like, okay, well, he's ahead of schedule. What does that mean? He's like, oh, you didn't accurately depict that. So what we're really coming down to is, hey, Brock Purdy had a schedule. He's ahead of schedule. But what does that mean? He's still not throwing 100%. He's barely touching a football. Who knows what that means? You know who was ahead of schedule last year? Every single athlete with an injury. So will this really be something that is right at home about? Probably not. He probably will get some sort of delay. If he doesn't, then great. Because PFF had Brock Purdy as a top 7 all-time rookie quarterback season. So he had a great year, or
phenomenal.
6 games in the regular season and in playoffs. But what we're really talking about here is, like, is he going to be 100% ready? Is he going to be 80% ready? Is he barely touching the football? I think those are vastly different outcomes. All I'm concerned about now is, hey, there's been no setback so far. And that's all I really...
That's all we can hang our hat on at this point, right? That's the only thing that's definitive at this point. No setbacks to this point. Everything has gone according to plan. He is slightly ahead of schedule. That maybe he threw a football a few days or a week before they expected him to be throwing a football. Maybe they thought he was still going to be throwing the towel at that point. But when you look at what remains, there's still a lot of hurdles that have to be cleared. He still has to get up to speed. You do have to wonder what percentage he's going to be at. I think it's fascinating when you hear the language that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have been using, that it feels more and more secure when talking about Brock Purdy as the leader in the clubhouse. When Shanahan talked about, the faith he had in Brock's ability to get healthy, assuming everything went right. He always had that disclaimer in there. But the language that I hear leads me to believe that even if you had a situation where Brock was at 80 or 90% of where he needed to be, that they might start with him week one over the other options, just because of this investment in the idea that he is the leader of the clubhouse. He's proven it on tape. The language to me is starting to sound more concrete around Brock starting.
Words over actions, right? The actions are 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance.
That's a fact.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is this, is that Shanahan also said that he hasn't even seen a single rehab session of Brock Purdy.
He's going off nothing.
So head coaches get reports from the training staff. Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Brock Purdy is ahead of schedule. Fantastic. But Shanahan's out on the field. Brock Purdy is throwing towels or balls or whatever in whatever rehab facility. He's not out there with the rest everybody else. Do you think Shanahan's really worried about Purdy right now, or is he worried about his entire team? I would suggest the latter. So my thing is this: great, Purdy's ahead of schedule. By how long? A week?
Right.
Who cares at this point? Because they invested not only in Trey Lance, but they invested in Sam Darnold, $4-something million. That's a pretty big investment. So the investment was saying that they don't expect Purdy to be there in the beginning of the season. If he is, then great. Like I said, 7th best rookie season ever in the history of the NFL, according to PFF.
That's wild.
So my thing is this: is like, why are we trying to force a narrative? Man, I think that the entire Twitterverse of the Niners, or pretty much any sports franchise, is forcing a narrative.
Yes.
Trey Lance is a bust. Brock Purdy is the next incumbent. Trey Lance needs to get more reps. Darnold just needs a new head coach. Allen has never dropped. He hadn't had an incomplete pass all of OTAs. Like, everybody's trying to force a narrative here. And realistically, come week 1, Shanahan's going to do what's best for the team.
Yes.
If that's Brock Purdy, if that's Trey Lance, if that's Sam Darnold, he's going to do what he thinks is best. And you can't hone down on, okay, well, he's ahead of schedule.
Right.
Because that's all that smoke in training camp, right?
Well, it's a breadcrumb, right? I mean, it's real. It's not smoke. It's real, but to your point, like, it's not enough. You can't make a conclusion based off of that. You cannot say, oh, Brock is going to start week 1 because he's ahead of schedule the first week in June. Uh-oh. Did we freeze up over there? Brandon's taking a long sip of water. A long sip of water. We'll get into the comments. We'll be right back as soon as Brandon's internet connection cooperates. It is back, but we'll say hello in the comments anyways before we get back to our conversation. Stivers, Niners 209 football coming in. Stivers 209 football is back. Brock Purdy's going to start week 1. There's your prediction. He says he had his 21st birthday. It went really well, and I got so drunk. We are excited to hear about the 21st birthday and kicking him back as a 21st should be. Raphael 562 Niners sneakerhead here on the channel, wishing good evening to myself, Randon, the sneakerheads, and everyone. Luke Walsh coming in. I'm going to correct that typo there for you. He came in to correct it himself, but Luke coming in to say it's OTA wrap-up. Yes, it is OTA wrap-up. The greatest 49, also a sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob and Randon, shout out to you guys for dropping another fire show. Thank you very much. We always try to bring the flames here. Niner Sickness Pod, good to see you. Hello, everyone. Hey, Rob, good to see you out here. Hope you're still out there enjoying it. Beto, Raphael 562 Niners coming in to say what's up to Beto as well. All right, we got those in the chat. We got Randon back from taking the long drink of water. Your camera froze right as you were taking a drink. Yeah. It looked like you just chugged the entire glass of water. It was fantastic. So we're talking about, obviously, not a concrete timeline when it comes to Brock Purdy. But the next topic that leads into is, regardless of what happens, whether the hypothetical situation is that Brock is back and Lance doesn't get any regular season snaps, or Brock isn't ready for week 1 and Lance gets the start, or Brock isn't ready, Lance doesn't get the start, and it goes to Sam Darnold. Like, any one of those could happen. If I were handicapping them, I would certainly play favorites to several of those scenarios. I don't think that Sam Darnold would win out a battle over Trey Lance at this point, but anything could happen. What do you see as the Brock Purdy effect being on Lance? Like, where does he go from here? Obviously, we have to make a call on his 5th-year option at the end of this season.
I think it's an open-ended story, and I ultimately think the 49ers are going to do what's best for them, which means Trey Lance is going to get stuck again.
Yeah.
You know, and there was an interesting poll up on Twitter. If they drafted Fields, would the story be any different? And I think no. I think Shanahan wants to win so much that he would have buried anybody behind Jimmy Garoppolo. So then what was the point of trading up to the 3rd round overall pick? Right? So you could easily could have drafted Purdy again, right? He was the last Mr. Irrelevant. So you could have drafted him in the 7th round, regardless of what you did with Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
Would this team be better with Jimmy Garoppolo, Micah Parsons, and Mr. Irrelevant? Would this team be better with Trey? But ultimately, you're looking at the Fields has gotten a chance to make mistakes. He was absolutely abysmal in his first year. Abysmal in the first part of his second year. But then he ran for over 1,000 yards. He was QB6 in fantasy football for all your fantasy football players out there because he got the opportunity to play. The Niners are not the Bears because the fact that they have Super Bowl aspirations and the Bears are lost in the wonderment that is Chicago.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't back up your investment, right? Who buys a property and does nothing with it? Who says, hey, girl, I'm gonna take you on this real date. You know, it takes her on a date, takes on another date, and never commits to her. Like that's my thing with the Niners right now. We're committing to Trey Lance, but we're not giving him any sort of real leeway in a relationship with the 49ers.
Yeah.
Now you're saying, I know I'm going all over the place here. So
please paint the picture. Paint the picture.
I'll let you come back on this.
I'll forget half of the points that I have, but paint it, baby.
So what I'm saying is this: you invested all this emotional capital, physical capital, draft capital into this player, and then you do nothing with it. You say, hey, he's the starter last year, you got injured. Great. Yeah. So what? We made the NFC Championship with Brock Purdy. Had a great – it doesn't mean anything for me because Trey Lance was your investment.
Yes.
If Trey Lance fails this year, like you could start Trey Lance. If he fails this year, you still have Brock Purdy for 2 more years and you move on. Like that's my thing there. It's like you still don't know what you have in your investment.
Right.
You put all this money, all this capital into this situation, and you don't know what you have. It's like Schrodinger's cat. It's like Schrodinger's cat. I don't know if you know that analogy, but it's like Schrodinger's cat. So, like, could the cat be dead? Could the cat be alive? We don't know because we don't open the box and see what Trey Lance is.
Yeah. What I would say is that a lot of people, myself included, said, oh, of all the drafted quarterbacks in that class, Trey Lance landed in the best spot. And the reality is, I think we were just wrong about that. That, yes, he landed on the most talented team, but he also landed on the team that was on the precipice of winning it all and does, to your point, have a head coach that is going to do whatever the fuck he needs to do to win that game. And is a control freak, right? Let's be honest about Kyle Shanahan. He may have fell in love with the physical traits that Trey has, but I guarantee it was he thought Trey could operate within his system, and he may have had the wool pulled over his eyes as far as just the sheer number of reps that Trey had in college to that point, and the number he was going to need in order to acclimate to the NFL, acclimate to Kyle Shanahan's system. And so he didn't get that fair shake. He didn't get the opportunity that you would have in Chicago. You would have had the chance to fail, pick yourself up, fail again, pick yourself up, fail a third. Like, it just would have been chance after chance after chance. Even if it hadn't been for Jimmy Garoppolo, you could have seen a situation where Lance wouldn't have had a whole lot of rope there in San Francisco his first year, even if he had gotten the start. So it's fascinating to watch. It's highly unfortunate for Lance because he then did get a legitimate shot in year 2. Just the football gods were against him. The injury gods were not in his favor. He ended up hurt, and that killed the chance of the growth that I was convinced we were going to see from Lance. This feels like the last opportunity for Lance to succeed as a San Francisco 49er. That's my greatest fear. My greatest fear is that we were right. We were freaking right when we put those 3 draft picks on the line to take him in the first round. And all he needed was some time. And because of the injuries and our unwillingness to give him that space, he's not going to get that time here in San Francisco if Brock Purdy is healthy and starts from week 1 and plays the entire season. If things work out to where he gets games this year, there's the chance he earns that 5th-year option. There's a chance he shows enough that if the Niners are still sold on Brock Purdy, that they can at least trade him to a team that will make use of those talents. But it is hard for me to watch and see the story unfold for Lance just a couple of plays here and there, little bit of bad luck, and it seems like he may not get that second big contract that had he played, he probably would have.
I think there's two separate things there. I think one is Shanahan. I think he's the boyfriend or girlfriend who's saying, yeah, I'll change. I'll do whatever is necessary. I'll do whatever it needs to be.
I promise.
Like, hey, I can get a quarterback who, is Lamar Jackson and Drew Brees entwined, right? That was his quote. And what did he do with Arizona? He ran Lance up the middle 18 times because he was afraid to let Lance throw the football.
Right.
He controlled that relationship. He was abusive relationship in that point.
I can't go that far, but yeah, he was a controlling relationship.
Control freak, sure. Right? And then it's like, oh well, okay, I'll give him his second season, and then, oh hey, he got injured, and then I got the girlfriend I always wanted in Brock Purdy. He's just gonna do what I say. He's gonna throw the football where I want to throw it, and he's the leader in the clubhouse. See, hey, he won 6 straight games in the regular season because he did what I said he was going to do. We're a good relationship, So I just think that Shanahan really understood that he needs a quarterback that can go to the next level. They drafted that quarterback that had that potential, and then Shanahan never really gave him the chance. And I don't care what Brock Purdy did. If you invested in Trey Lance, he should start this season because all you need is this. 4 straight games. That's what I'm saying. The pub is 4 games. 4 games. If Lance isn't that guy, then go to Purdy. Because the fact that, hey, what did we start last year and the year before? Like 2-3, 2-4.
Yeah, we have started slow under Shanahan every season.
So what's the harm in 4 games to really see the effort that Trey Lance put into this thing? And then 2, I really think that the narrative is this. If we didn't have that 2019 season, there wouldn't be the pressure that there is now, right? You go to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. We were a couple throws away. We were leading, but they made the decision to go and get another quarterback because they knew that wasn't good enough. And then now you're not. And then now that you're not realizing that dream. Now I do think Purdy can be a successful quarterback, but what if this is the apex?
Right.
The apex for Jimmy Garoppolo was the first 5 seasons. What if this is the apex?
Yeah, the first 5 games. Yeah, absolutely.
And then what if it goes down from here? I don't know. There's a lot of what ifs in this situation, and I am of the mindset of all things are possible, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't know what it is until we get there. And I think Niners Twitter and Niners relationship is definitive. Which is not
you want to talk about toxic relationships. The people who lock on to one quarterback and forsake all others and seem to be player centric instead of team centric, you get really outlandish freaking opinions out there. No doubt about it. The only piece that I don't agree with you on is the sunk cost fallacy that you gave up 3 1s years ago. That is spent. Like, regardless of what happens to Lance, those picks are gone. So you got to go with the player that gives you the best option. But the rest of your argument around giving Lance time to let you show you if he is the best option, I'm on board with that. But as far as the draft picks, those are gone. If it's Brock and you got him with the 7th rounder at the end of the draft, then you got lucky in that one. So I would go forward in that one. All right, I'm bringing in a couple of comments from the peanut gallery here. Playboy Chewy has a quick one for us. All right, what's more impressive? Hargrave's bottom half or Bosa's upper half? Could you take a snippet of one and just glue them both together? I got to say, as someone who just like abs are, God, core workouts suck. They really suck. So someone who has the type of abs that Bosa has put together, I got to give him the nod. I got to say that's like impossible. It looks like he's photoshopped.
Bosa has bigger quads than Hargrave too.
Okay, so you're going Bosa top and bottom. You're like, just the man's a freak.
Yeah, Hargrave's got that. He's got the lower half, for a 300 and whatever pounder. But looking at like 4% body fat or 5% body fat, like 0 cheat days. Is what I'm thinking. Yeah. Nick Bosa, like
no days off.
He's getting
no days off.
He goes like, oh, I'm going to bed at 9:00. Like after an NFC wild card win, he's like, yeah, I'm going home and going to sleep. That kind of stuff is dedication. Not saying that Hargrave doesn't have that, but I'm going complete body in the history of time since I've been watching football. Bosa has the most dedication I've ever seen for any athlete with his physique.
The man is dedicated. It's pretty freaking impressive. Like, you build a defense around players like that. You just do. You build it for a freaking decade. Bullpup 33 coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel. What's up, Bullpup? He says, I'm concerned Trey's not been killing it in practice. This has been the narrative, right? This is what we're seeing on all the coverage, and people run with this. I'm not concerned. When we get to preseason games, and if we get to the regular season and Trey is given the opportunity, then that's what I'll really be looking at. Live fire situations. I am not going to be counting practice repetitions this year. I've had enough of that in seasons past. It doesn't, to me, dictate who is actually going to perform, because there are so many inconsistencies of what team you're playing with, first or second team, what defense you're going against, first or second defense. There are just so many varieties, and you're practicing plays that, like, you're intentionally taking some shots, taking some risks, throwing a ball where you probably wouldn't if it were a game day. So I understand the concern here. I'm not dismissing it here, Bullpup. I think a lot of people are concerned. I'm going to hold out until I see live fire, live bullets.
Practice? We're talking about practice?
Practice?
We're the only fan base doing this, to be honest with you.
Yes, we're obsessed.
I checked the other day in all the fan bases with rookie quarterbacks. The Colts fan base, all this. I've been searching. No other fan base is counting fucking preseason OTA throws. Like, this is outrageous. Like, this is a chance for him to work on what he needs to work on. And now Allen hasn't missed a pass, even though he's facing third teams. He's facing you and I in the secondary, and he hasn't dropped a pass. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Like, why is this even a topic? I am so virally upset about this whole bullshit thing with Trey Lance and Garoppolo. Right now, Gardner Minshew, a very good backup, semi-starter is with Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. Not one report that I have ever seen, and I've searched for it, with the preseason stats for these quarterbacks. Why is Trey Lance the only person that has to go through this bullshit? I don't understand it. And it's viral among the fan base. He threw an interception to a defensive lineman. Like, that's never been done before. Did you not see Sam Darnold throw it directly to Deommodore Lenoir and he dropped it? And Brandon Aiyuk said, "What the fuck was that pass?" Like, I don't understand where this fan base is at. Get a life, everybody out there who wants to put so much stock into OTAs.
I mean, I gotta disagree, because I put a lot of stock in OTAs.
OTAs is great for players who are trying to make the roster. It is a great time for that.
Completion percentage, no.
For quarterback stats, no. Like, you don't know what he's doing. You're getting a snippet. Do you understand why that the Niners, the footage that we ever get is Trey Lance doing the bag drill and Trey Lance throwing the same route every single time? Is because the Niners want us to only see those things. That's why you're only allowed there one day. This is freaking madness. Like, if Brock Purdy wins the job, great. If Trey Lance wins the job, great. If Sam Darnold has a recreation of his career and wins the job, fantastic. Because I trust in Shanahan to choose the right thing. But all you people, like, picking one pass out and, like, that's his career or that's his OTA or he's a failure or that's your narrative. And shame on you for pushing your narrative because you're a couch GM on Twitter. Like, come on, like, grab a life, people. Like, this is the Niners. Like, this ain't no bullshit franchise that we're talking about. This is one of the most historic franchises in all of sports, and shame on you for pushing your narrative with a 21-year-old kid because you think you're a better couch quarterback than what people he's getting on. Shame on you.
I just love the rant. Raphael 562 Niners coming in. Randon speaking facts. Ian Sharp says it's madness, of course. Stovey 4x4ing, blame the media. I mean, that a little bit of that blame comes back on us. But no, not on this show. We are standing our ground as far as our beliefs around the importance of it. Got to shout this out. David coming in. David Anguiano coming in with the super chat. That is much appreciated. Says, glad to see you back in action, Rob. Cheers. Cheers to you as well, David. I hope you're enjoying the show. I hope you're enjoying a beverage. I hope you enjoyed Randon's rant right there. I know I fucking did, because that was whether I agree with it or not, it was emotional and it was compelling. And it was what I liked about it most was it is in staunch defense of like this BS narrative that does seem to exist more around Trey Lance in people wanting to label a bust when you just can't at this point. Like, I understand being concerned. I understand believing that he may not get the chance here in San Francisco. That's where I am right now. I'm worried he will shine for some other team. But the idea that it is simply decided at this point is crazy a little bit. All right, we got a couple of comments that feel relevant. NYCE 1030. This is in relation to the analogy that was given earlier. He says, this isn't a relationship or property. It's a business. You got to take emotions out of it. Trey said it best. He just wants to compete, and let's see who is better, Trey or Brock. Trey, Brock, Sam, that's exactly what needs to happen this summer is competition. It will be decided on the field. Shanahan talked about it as much of like, hey, you saw on tape who was the starting quarterback last year. You saw, the players saw. I didn't need to declare Brock the starting quarterback last season because the tape did it for me. The same thing will be true this year. We will see on tape who's playing well, who deserves that backup role. Are you going with Brock? Do you explore the possibility of trading Trey Lance to recoup some assets? All of that will become clear. But I agree with the sentiment that you've got to just let him compete. That's what's going to decide it.
Competition is based on who has the upper hand. This isn't a clean start, and the Niners have already admitted that. Brock has the clean start, or the head in the start.
Yeah, he's got the clear advantage.
So is this really a competition? Like if Shanahan and Lynch have made their mind up, this could be all hearsay. If they've made their mind up, and as long as Brock is healthy,
but that's the key. That's the key. We don't know that he is.
But right now, he's supposed to be healthy 2 weeks before the season. And my biggest thing was this: if his healthy radar, or when he was supposed to be healthy, was exactly week 1.
Yep.
So I don't want to throw a guy who's straight off of Tommy John right into the fray. Let's let him build up to that. And let's let Trey Lance get his due. Now, if the timeline is, hey, 2 weeks before the regular season, you have 2 weeks to practice and whatever.
Right.
And if they believe that Brock Purdy's it, if they believe that the number 7 ever rookie season, according to PFF, is his true quarterback nature, then that's their decision to decide, not mine. And I will fully support Brock Purdy. But my thing is this: investment is in twofold. One, you invested property or picks or what in equity into Trey Lance, and then you saw it on the field in sweat equity with Brock Purdy. Where does the two interchange? Because ultimately you have 3 more years of Brock Purdy. You're not saying you can't go back to him, but I feel like this is the epicenter or the divergence for Trey Lance. If he doesn't start or get a chance to start this year, he never will for the Niners.
Yes, I agree. This is it. Like and it's not that like, to your point, he doesn't have a clear shot just on the merits. I do not think there's a situation where Lance plays well enough in the preseason to earn himself the starting role. I don't think that's open. I think the only way he plays in the regular season is if he doesn't get traded and Brock is unable to go at some point. The language I'm hearing, that feels like what it is. The greatest 49 coming in to say, I'm going to call Randon ranting. I like that. NYCE 1030 says, Randon, drop the mic. A lot of people agreeing with the Randon rant. The greatest 49 saying, hey, it's too early to bash him. Wait until training camp. If he stinks it up, then go ahead and bash him, but wait until it's warranted. I would certainly say wait until you've seen some game action before critiquing players overly aggressively. And we're going to continue to get this, right? It went from like 1 or 2 beat reporters reporting the stats of quarterback completion percentage drops and whatnot in preseason. And then they realized it got traction amongst the 49ers Twitterverse and all the nuts that we have in our fan base, myself included. And now every beat reporter is freaking reporting on it. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, these were the completions for the day. You get differences in drops and who was responsible for what. We're going to continue to see these criticisms. I would agree that until you see game film, it is not warranted.
So we saw completion percentages last season.
Yes.
But did we not one reporter said, hey, Trey Jackson, you're fat. Like you came into camp out of shape. Deebo said he was out of shape. Not one reporter's like held Deebo to the fire and said, hey, you had an all-pro season and you look like you're wearing a very extra large white t-shirt because you don't want to see your body. Like, where is all?
I will say there were some people who were like, Deebo doesn't quite look like he's in the same shape as last year.
We're going to hold a 20-year-old to the fire who's never really gotten a chance, but we're not going to hold an old pro or Kinlaw to the. We're going to say, oh yeah, Kinlaw, you're in shape, but you've never been healthy your entire career. Like, we're not going to hold him to the fire, but we're going to hold a 20-year-old. It just really makes zero sense to me. And I get it. I get it. Like the controversy was made by San Francisco by moving up. Like, we could have stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo and drafted a corner or drafted Micah Parsons or whoever at that point.
And could have even taken Mac Jones at 12, right? I mean, that clearly was a consideration.
And not done that. But I'm saying, like, we're talking about a drill and overthrowing a guy who picks up towels for a living for San Francisco by a couple yards. And that's the biggest thing on Twitter. Like, you're going to dissect a practice throw where he's overstepping pads and trying to do things. Like, like I just don't get it. Like, this is not real football.
No,
the real football I saw was Trey Lance was a top 10 quarterback for the first 3 quarters in Chicago. He was a top 10 quarterback in Houston last season. In actual games where he played and Shanahan dialed up plays for him, he answered the call.
Yeah, certainly Houston.
So where is the narrative here? It's the narrative you're trying to push. And I'm not saying that Trey Lance is a good quarterback. I'm not saying that Trey Lance is the answer. I'm saying Trey Lance has not got a fair shot amongst the fan base, amongst the organization, and I don't think it's right.
That's absolutely true. So Lamar Macklin coming in, who had earlier in the chat, I noticed saying he was bear down, right? A Bear fan. So not as quite as in touch maybe with the show, but no, on this show, both Randon and I'll speak for myself. I believe that that's true for Randon as well. Both believe in Trey Lance. What we're speaking about right now is the reality of who's actually going to get the opportunity. I think that the fact that Trey Lance won't get a chance to shine in San Francisco has less to do with his ability and far more to do with the circumstances he was thrust into and the unfortunate injuries that he suffered at key moments in time where he had that glimmer of like the door was open for him to kick it wide open and declare himself the player that we gave up so much to draft. And then again, the injury gods did not go his way. It's highly unfortunate. I still think that there's a very real possibility that he ends up proving that, unfortunately, for some other team, because to someone else in the comments calling it out, barring injury, with the language I'm hearing from the coaching staff, the players, everyone, I do not think Trey Lance is going to get the opportunity to show us what he can do in real situations that would earn him a starting role with San Francisco. So it either depends on an injury, which I would never wish on anyone, or he's got to get that chance somewhere else. And I say that not as a critique of Trey Lance. I just say that as the way I see the facts playing out.
Yeah. Can you throw up Nick Hertz's comment, the last one right there?
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Hertz coming in. Trey Lance is not a good quarterback.
So let's go back to a quarterback that you might know or might not know. His name is Peyton Manning. Right?
Peyton Manning. Never heard of him.
The most interceptions ever as a rookie.
Set the record.
And he went to a high school, Tennessee, SEC school. So you can't blame the fact that, hey, he played at a small school. Like, he played at the best competition that you could have played in and set the record for most interceptions. I don't know if you know this there, Rob, but he's a Hall of Famer and won multiple Super Bowls.
That's where I've heard of that guy.
Yeah.
I just thought he did that broadcast with his brother, and I wondered why.
So to say that you know for sure that Trey Lance is not a good quarterback after 3.5 games is asinine, Nick Hertz.
It's a little crazy.
And it's a little crazy. And I just think that, like, we're all pushing this stuff because the Niners are a good team. If Trey Lance was drafted in 2017 instead of Solomon Thomas, he would have got his fair shot to try to be a good quarterback. Yes. Or Alex Smith Or Alex Smith, right? Had 6 years of 5 different offensive coordinators. It took him over 7 or 8 years to become a good quarterback. Geno Smith took 9 years after he was drafted to become a good quarterback. It just takes time sometimes. And I'm not saying that Trey Lance will ever be a good quarterback. All I'm saying is that he hasn't been given the opportunity to prove otherwise.
Yeah. To Bullpup's comment, I don't think you're comparing him to Peyton Manning. I think you were using the Peyton Manning reference as like, hey, you cannot tell off of the bat. I agree, though, that it's
completely
a stretch.
Different quarterback. Completely different quarterback.
Peyton, we got a couple people saying what's up. Wave Ware coming in to say what's up, Beard. And we suck again coming in. What's up, Rob? What's up to both of you? All right. So we have been beating up the quarterback conversation. Let's talk about some other stuff here. Let's talk about Deebo Samuel and the self-critique. What do you make of Deebo Samuel coming in and talking about, hey, man, I sat down with Coach Shanahan. I watched some tape of what I did last year, and I'm embarrassed. Like, I do not ever want to put something like that on tape again. Is that going to be enough to see a resurgence of Deebo Samuel this year?
2 things here. I wonder if he came across this before sitting down with Shanahan, or if Shanahan was just like, hey, you thought you were okay last season. Let me prove you otherwise. Like
let me take you down a peg here, Deebo.
Yeah. It's like, I wonder how that happened, but how I want to go about it is I think Deebo was like so into being the wide back.
Yes.
He's like, oh, I'm irreplaceable. He even said that I don't watch other receivers' tape because no receiver is like me. And I think that's kind of a childish way to look at it. Like, there's always improvements to get better.
Most definitely.
And so if you're not watching tape of Devontae Adams or Cooper Kupp or all these receivers that have better seasons than you in their career, and you're not trying to get better, you're not trying to be the best receiver you can possibly be. And so I think that he rested on his laurels of being a wide back. And then, like you said, he admitted the contract got to him. I'm sure it probably
100%.
Did. We talked about it last year.
It.
Every single fan was either calling him a sellout or calling him, hey, he's greedy or this and that or whatever adjective you want to use. But they were, they were saying, hey, go get your money or you're worth more or this or that. Like, there's just that pull. He was even at a nightclub and the waitress is bringing up the bottle to him when he was just having a nice out. Hey, Deebo, sign with the Niners. Like, in a night out where you're trying to relax, you have other outside influences trying to sway you. So, yeah, I can understand how the offseason was important for him, but it's ultimately his responsibility. He did not come into camp in shape. He was not ready. He focused too much on being a running back and not a wide receiver. And he had a bad season. Regardless of injury, he was not dominant. You look at in his season last year, he averaged, I believe, if I remember correctly, 17.5 or 18 yards per reception.
And he had the one big game against the Rams, right? That was the one game where, like, he flashed Deebo, and that skewed the stats. If you took that one game out, it would look even worse.
No, I'm talking about 2021. I'm talking about his all-pro season. Yeah.
Gotcha.
He had 18-point-something yards per reception.
Yeah.
10 of those were after the catch. So his catch point was 9 yards per reception. Last season, he averaged 9.8. So his total reception yards with after the catch was 9.8. And then the year before that, his catch yard before yards after the catch was 9.8. So he had a really down season. What
he
I
most definitely did.
Let's acknowledge that and let's move forward to what he actually said. He said, hey, I sat down with Shanahan. I was garbage. I was out of shape. I did not do what I needed to do. I came in. I let the outside influence get to me. What does that mean going forward? And I want to throw that to you there, Rob. What do you think that means for him going forward? Is he going to get back into the wide back? Is he going to be back to be the 1,400-yard receiver, that he was 2 years ago? Where do you think that falls for him?
Here's what I saw. I saw the tape prior to the amazing season in 2021. Deebo was fucking hungry. Like, you watched him work out, and he was posting the workout tapes all the time. Dude was crushing it. Like, when you go to the gym, you could go to the gym 5 days a week and half-ass it. Like, just being in the gym, just hitting the weights isn't where it's at. Right? It's like, yeah, you can. But you can go a couple, 3 times a week and crush it and see better results. And from what I saw in that contract year, obviously he was motivated by, generational money, which he got for himself and he earned and he deserves. And then the contract thing. And what I sensed from him was, you don't want to pay me? Fuck you. Like, am I going to bust my body to be who I was last season when you're not going to put the money on the line? No. So until the money's on the line, I'm not going to be that guy that's training ferociously. And until this point, this offseason, I've not seen Deebo back to that pre-2021 form. This is the first instance of him admitting that last season wasn't great and saying, I'm going to be in shape this year. What I'm seeing and hearing from camp is not that Deebo's in the same shape he was in 2021, but that it's not fantastic at this point, right? That he could look a little sharper. So I'll be impressed if he goes away and comes back to training camp looking shredded, if he just spends the next 6 weeks or whatever they have at their disposal to just grind in the gym. But that's not the same as the offseason he spent the entire time going hard. So what I predict will happen this season is we will see a slight resurgence of Deebo Samuel, but we will not see 2021 form. He may focus more on the receiver aspect. Like we could see 1,000-yard receiving season from him. It could be a statistically good season, but I can't see the resurgence to that form that earned him the contract. And quite honestly, unless he gets back to that form, when the 49ers are faced with the option of Deebo Samuel at however many million he jumps up to next year, it's ridiculous. And Brandon Aiyuk on his 5th year jumps up as well. I think it's 40 million between the two of them. There's going to be a decision that needs to be made. And if Deebo hasn't reestablished himself close to that 2021 form, I think the Niners do cash out. I think that they attempt to trade him at that point because you have to make a decision. The fan in me will be crushed by that. The couch GM, like you got to make tough decisions at some point. And with the bruising style of play that Deebo does run with, a long-term investment, a next big contract, that's shaky. So this season feels important to me for Deebo's future with the Niners.
100% agree. And I think that, you see things. Well, one, you see him train with DeAndre Hopkins, right? So he is training.
Yes.
Whether that's
aggressive absolutely
or not, he is training.
Yes,
But,
please don't make it. Don't interpret my statement to mean that I don't think he's in good shape. What I'm saying is he's not in 2021 shape.
No, he ain't in good shape. No, I think Deebo's always going to wrestle with the fact that he is a thicker human being than most, right? He's 5'11", he's got the big thighs, big booty. He rolls over people. He's probably comfortable at 228, 230.
Yeah.
Where with his all-pro season, he was 219 coming in. Like he had very little body fat, a bunch of muscle, and he was hungry.
Yep.
Right now, Brandon Aiyuk is outworking him.
100%. 100% outworking him.
In every sense of the word. So where is this going to come for Deebo Samuel? And ultimately, I don't believe the 49ers has the offense to give Kittle, Aiyuk, CMC, and Deebo the amount of receiving.
We're paused. We'll be back to Randon. We're going to the comments here. I saw some earlier. Randon, we're coming right back to you because you paused for just 1 second. So hold that thought. I'm going to hit this comment. We're coming back to you. We suck again, says Rob. Larry Kruger said he'd be happy to do a show with you. You should collab. Waveware says Larry and Rob would be money. I will be getting on guests. Don't you worry. Randon and I are keeping this thing going during the off season. But as we roll into training camp, there's going to be a lot more interview shows going on. Look for that to happen. But I appreciate the insight. I definitely enjoy Larry Kruger and would happily do a show. All right, Randon, sorry, you got cut off towards the beginning of that. Please, what was your point there?
Ultimately, my point is that I don't think the Niners have 5,000 passing yards in their repertoire.
Nah,
probably
not.
So who's going to get shorted out, right? Because CMC could receive for 1,000 yards. He's already done that.
Could.
Deebo could receive for 1,000 yards. He's already done that. Kittle could receive for 1,000 yards. He's already done that. And Aiyuk could do the same. So
Aiyuk will. To me, that's a lock. Aiyuk and 1,000-yard season's a lock.
So where is the disconnect? Is it going to be talent? Probably not. Is it going to be injury based? Maybe. So who the most injury prone people on the Niners roster? CMC, Deebo, and Kittle. So does that mean Aiyuk is the most likely to get over 1,000 yards? We'll see here, but he's the least targeted out of out of the entire group. So where does this all break down? I just think that bringing it back to Deebo Samuel, if he was as hungry as he was in his All-Pro year, he'd be a top 5 receiver in this league easily. Receiver, not wide back, receiver. And I just don't think I see that hungriness from him. And maybe I would love to be proven wrong.
Yes.
Would love to be.
Let me say definitively, I am a huge Deebo fan. I have had, I usually would change a wallpaper. I have had the same wallpaper on my phone. Come on. Deebo on the bike. There he is. For 4 years now? Because I've had that since 2019. Refused to change it because I'm a huge fan of what Deebo does. And I agree. We've got to see that hunger again because it is that will to get the extra yard. It's same thing with Kittle. It's that will to drive through your opponent that truly makes Deebo special, that makes Kittle special, that makes Christian McCaffrey special, right? The going full speed of practices. That's all, to me, all those things indicate mindset. My hope is that this wake-up call from Kyle Shanahan, if that's what it was, serves as something that lights that fire because Deebo plays better when that fire's lit.
So where the stats meet the road is this. On reception perception, if people know what that is how well the receiver runs certain routes based on expectation of those routes and where the defenders are at. Well, Aiyuk was top 10 of any receiver in both man and zone coverage. Of any receiver. He's up there with Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, all those people. He's just the 4th option. Now, Deebo's top 10 versus zone, but it was 55th, I think, during man. That wasn't the case in his All-Pro year. He was able to beat people one-on-one. And the thing that really upset me was hey, I don't watch tape. I don't try to get better because nobody can do what I can do. He was the epitome of Receiverville. He had one good season. And it was a really good season.
Yeah, one elite season.
But to say that you can't get better or you don't watch film or you're not taking tricks and tips from other people, I think that's a really downside. And hopefully he's learned from that.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
It turned me the wrong way last year, and I think maybe I downplayed it enough to where I thought that he would have that hunger from trying to get a contract, but it turned out it wasn't the case. Yeah. And so I really just think that Deebo has it in him to be elite, to be all-pro, to be one of the top 5 receivers in the league. And that's up to Deebo. That isn't up to anybody else.
Right. The ability is there, and he's shown it. I mean, that season was incredible. And when I see a comment like Papa Phil here saying, y'all short-term memory, LOL, I get it. I mean, we are critiquing Deebo. For me, it's very important to preface it by saying everything is relative. We are comparing it to one of the more elite seasons by a wide receiver ever. And so to fall off of that, when I say he's fallen off, I'm not implying that he's not a good player, that he's not a great player, that he's not capable of bouncing back. All of those things are true. And what is also true is he had a down year last year, and it was a result of not being prepared, not having that fire. So it is fair to criticize for that. He seems to be criticizing himself for it. And it's still possible that Greg T, sneakerhead here on the channel, is completely right about this, saying Deebo will be the man this year. Every part of my being wants him to be the man. If you have Brandon Aiyuk lighting it up as a pure wide receiver, Deebo being the wide receiver he was in the first half of 2021, but adding in that multidimensional wide back piece to it, and you've got CMC and you've got Kittle, that unlock is next level to me, but it does require the mindset, same as it did for Brandon Aiyuk in that first year where it wasn't happening in practice. And then finally, towards midseason, he lit on fire. And now we have seen what's coming out of Brandon Aiyuk. He just keeps taking it to the next level. So to me, it's more of just, will Deebo challenge himself to take it up a notch? Papa Phil wants to point out, hey, he was hurt. He says you have to acknowledge that he got hurt last year and that he came back. I will. I give Deebo.
Yeah, but if you look
ultimate.
at his stats, even when he was healthy, were straight trash. He wasn't running the routes.
There was I can't say straight trash because the Rams game was legit, right? That was a standout
one
game.
game out of 17, like any receiver can do that. We're all professional. We're all professional athletes. Come on, Rob.
That would be minimizing what Deebo brings to the table. I will acknowledge he got hurt, but I still think he had a down year.
So if we're going to compare him, which he was being compared to a top 5 receiver, a top 10 receiver in the league,
he was
during the All Pro.
Yeah.
You want to hear Devontae Adams stats, who is the number 1 receiver in the league?
No, because that's going to be consistency.
1,500, 1,340. He had a down year of 997 yards because he only played 12 games. So he was injured for his 4 games and still almost had a 1,000-yard season, and then 1,300. He had 5 straight seasons of over 1,000 yards almost. And then you have Justin Jefferson. You have all these other guys who are elite. You have Cooper Kupp, who was elite before he got injured last season. He finished in fantasy football as the wide receiver 28, and he played 8 games. So like before that, he had a 30% target share. Like we're not talking about all this kind of stuff. And I've looked at the tape, Papa Phil. I've looked at the tape.
Yeah, Deebo looked at the tape. Deebo looked at the tape and said he was embarrassed.
He was sorry. He was embarrassed.
Yeah.
So he wasn't good last season. He wasn't good. He came in out of shape. He wasn't good. Let's go. Oh, garbage time. Get the F out of here, Papa Phil, with garbage time. Come on, get out of here.
Brandon, there's no insulting guests of the program.
God. Jesus Christ. Like, you're talking about the elite receivers of the league. We're trying to compare with the elite receivers of the league.
That's right. But that's key. Those words have to find their way into the sentence. Like the reason you're being critical.
They lost, so they would have a lot of garbage time by comparison, and he still didn't produce. So take your garbage time out of here. Own up to what he was. He wasn't a good receiver last year.
I can't go to say he wasn't a good receiver. He was not elite.
He was mediocre at best.
Yeah.
And mediocre at best won't cut it for $25 million a year. So
good doesn't cut it for $25 million a year.
He needs to come back and have an elite season. And he said it was embarrassing. So yeah.
We shall see. How about the other wide receiver, Brandon Aiyuk? I'm about to take off. I mean, we've gotten practice reports claiming that he's the best player at camp, looking like the best player at camp, best player on the field. Matt Barrows throwing that out there. He says at the stadium, hey, I'm about to take off. He has himself a 1,000-yard season last year. My question is, will we really see a next level, or does it just show, statistically speaking, does he have a moderately better year this year? I mean, if he's going to take off from a 1,000-yard season, you got to hope for like 1,400, 1,500 yards. I just don't know in this offense with as many mouths as we have to feed, whether he's going to be capable of it. I do think he'll be incredibly hard to cover. He just seems to have that wiggle. He's at the top of his game right now. It is a prove-it year for him, no doubt about it. He's going to have that big contract negotiation coming up, so putting film on tape this year is absolutely critical. What's your prediction? Do you think he really does kick it up to the next level in the regular season?
I would say this. If you swap CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Aiyuk would be a top 5 receiver in this league. He's just not given the opportunity. He's not given the targets. He's just really not.
Fewer targets than all those other players you mentioned earlier.
So, like if he's used like CeeDee Lamb in the Cowboys offense, where they motion him, they put him in the slot, they put him outside, they allow him to use his route running ability, reception perception, he has above reception average for every single route that he runs. One of, I think, 2 receivers in the entire National Football League that has a green route tree, 100%. So, like, he is an elite route runner. People don't give him that fact. But why is he the 4th option on this team? I have no idea. Because you have an all-pro here, all-pro there, all-pro everywhere. This team is stacked.
Do you think he's the 4th option this year? Like, end of the year, do you think he ends up same 4th on targets? If
it were me, he'd be 2nd. He'd be behind CMC because we need to continue to establish the passing tree outside the backfield.
Yeah.
With the Niners, their points per game went way up when they started targeting.
Oh, it was incredible. It was what, like 8.5 points a game? It was unheard of.
So I think that I think that you're looking at if Aiyuk was the number 2 option on this team, he could have 1,500 yards. I really do.
Yeah.
But he won't be because Shanahan doesn't care about your stats. Shanahan cares about winning games.
And rightfully so. Like, I got to give it to him. As a head coach, that's what you got to care about is
100%.
wins and losses.
100%. But will that go towards what Aiyuk wants to do?
Yeah.
Well, Aiyuk asked to be traded so he can get his bag and be and treated as a number 1 wide receiver.
Right.
Because CeeDee Lamb's going to get 25 to 28 million. What is Aiyuk going to get? Probably not even close to that amount.
Yeah, he has a lot of peers that are going to get paid. And if he doesn't, that's going to sour the relationship between the organization and him.
Now there is a caveat here. He's the number 4 option on the Niners. He's also the number 4 option of being covered by opposing defenses. Can he be the number 1? Can he be the guy that gets doubled and beats double coverage? We won't know because he hasn't been given the opportunity for that. So, yeah, he's lighting people on fire. He's top 10 in man and zone coverages. But is he really being tested with the number 1 corner? Is he really being tested by the defensive coordinator trying to eliminate Brandon Aiyuk? No defensive coordinator is going to a matchup with the Niners and saying, "Hey, let's eliminate Brandon Aiyuk." They're saying, "Hey, let's eliminate CMC. Let's eliminate Deebo Samuel. Let's eliminate George Kittle." Based on their defense. Nobody's doing that for Aiyuk because he's not thought of as that guy, but I think he can be that guy if given the opportunity.
I am looking forward to it. Papa Phil coming in. He says, "Rob, thanks for keeping it respectful." You are very welcome, Papa Phil. And take comfort that even Randon, when he drops harsh words, is just in his rant state and he means it with love. He's a soft guy at heart, even if he doesn't come across that way when he's got a virile opinion on something. It's just got to be known.
Today. Thank you, Papa Phil, for being in the chat. Appreciate
it. We got a couple of people talking about, hey, Ayuk's future depends on who's QB. Greg T coming in to say that. Stovey 4x4ing saying, hey, we didn't have a quarterback who would throw deep to BA. It does depend who is getting him the ball. I do think this is going to be a breakout season for him, but it begs the question.
I think that's an overused narrative.
Of who the quarterback is in tossing it deep.
So if you were to say right here, Rob, over and under 1 40-yard completion per game for Patrick Mahomes, what would you say?
Under.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. 14, and when you look at Brock Purdy, like he actually had a pretty good percentage of throws going down the field. It was a small sample size, but he was he was at the Patrick Mahomes level of 20-yard passes.
Exactly. So like the whole, we need Trey Lance to unlock Brandon Aiyuk is poppycock in my opinion. Like, Brandon Aiyuk is a great receiver, and if you look at the stats last year, Mahomes had I believe 16 or 14 passes below 40 or above 40, but he had 60 between 20 and 40. That's where you got to live.
Yeah.
Where we were living with Jimmy Garoppolo was between 10 and 20.
Yes.
Like to unlock the next 20 yards is where we need to go. And that's not Trey Lance. That's not Purdy. That's any quarterback can do that because all NFL quarterbacks can throw between 20 and 40 yards.
Yeah.
It's just the offense, the way it's designed, will Shanahan allow the quarterback to throw those routes?
Right. The only player who seemed like was immediately impacted by the loss of Lance was Danny Gray. I do think that those deep shots were a loss for Danny Gray, but I don't know that he would have lit it up even if Trey had played all season because he just may not have been ready to contribute in the NFL. He just may be a project. So let's talk about the idea of spreading the ball around. Can this offense have multiple 1,000-yard receivers? Last year, I predicted it would be Kittle and Aiyuk. And I'll be honest, like I feel like I came pretty close. If Kittle had been healthy all year, maybe I'd have gotten that one right. I think it can support multiple 1,000-yard receivers. I don't think it'll be 2 receivers. I don't think it's Deebo and Aiyuk. I do believe Aiyuk crests 1,000. And I think there's absolutely a chance that CMC or Kittle does it as well, or at least comes real close to it. Do you see this offense as being able to support the mouths that we need to feed at receiver? Maybe hit a couple of 1K.
We both thought 3, I think, is what we both thought. We both thought Deebo, Aiyuk, and Kittle would get it. Right. So
I had Deebo above 1,000 combined, and I was wrong about that, but I thought he'd be just below receiving.
Okay. So I thought all 3. And realistically, we got 1. which was Aiyuk. So to be honest with you, I think 2 maybe this year. Because Kittle's probably going to get injured maybe 2 or 3 games. Deebo's had his injury thing. I think maybe 2 or 3 games. I think Aiyuk is the man. I mean, I've drafted Aiyuk anywhere I can in fantasy football.
Yes.
Fantasy football is not real football, but it's just I think he's the man. I think he has a chance to be the man in any offense. And ultimately, I think he's the best receiver on this team. And he's the youngest one out of all 3 guys. So I think the future comes with Aiyuk. Hopefully, Shanahan targets him more than, not more than the other guys, because that's unfair because they're both elite too. But I'm just saying, I hope the targets start moving towards Aiyuk because I think he can be an all-pro in himself.
If he doesn't get targeted and does become upset because he looks like he's not headed for the bag he believes he deserves, to David's questions here, are a lot of teams going to be ready to give up a first for Brandon Aiyuk? I tend to think yes. I think there would be a lot of front offices in the league that recognize what he's been able to do for San Francisco. And to your point, what he would be able to do in an offense where he was truly featured. So if it ever got to that, if it devolved to a situation where he said, trade me, I don't want to play for the 49ers, or the Niners decide that Deebo is the centerpiece and they can't pay a second wide receiver, if the hypothetical of needing to trade him comes up, do you get a 1 back?
I think he should be worth a 1. Like, you're taking a chance at drafting a guy in the NFL draft that can maybe do this or that.
Yeah.
Right. So, I've done the stats for over a decade. The hit rate for any first round pick is most of the position groups are less than 50%.
Yep.
To get 1 Pro Bowl, let alone have a competent pick outside of offensive line and a couple other positions. So Aiyuk is guaranteed, as he's proven he's got 1,000 yards. If you take a guy like Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnson or people that have been in the middle of the draft, even Jackson Smith and Jigma, the number 1 recruit, he's going to Seattle. He's behind 2 guys right now. Will he ever see a 1,000-yard season? He might not, because he's behind 2 guys that have proven they can do so. Do you think that Geno Smith is going to target somebody new because he's there? Like, there's a possibility that he doesn't target this kid. He gets stuck behind these 2 other guys because of contracts, and he gets thought of as a bust 2 years into it. The football universe is what have you done for me lately?
100%.
So I just think that, if you're a team looking at, hey, I need to rebuild, like Carolina, would you give a high second round pick or a first round pick for Brandon Aiyuk when you have nobody on the roster that can receive? Probably. Yes,
absolutely. If I've got a late first round pick, anything in the 20 to 30 range, I would offer that for a wide receiver of Brandon Aiyuk's age, ability, and ascension, right? The idea that he's on the way up. All right, we're going to hit one last topic here. We've been going for the hour here. We are cranking through. Do me that favor if you're watching, hit the like button for us. Randon does a phenomenal hockey podcast, Hockey Royalty. The information for that is down below in the description of the video. After you like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification. You will know when we go live. You'll know when I throw in extra shows in the week. I promise they are coming. Even though I've been saying that for weeks, it's still true. But let's end on this one. Let's end on packing on the pound. Something in my lifetime, Brandon, I've done multiple times. Maybe not in the same efficient way that Drake Jackson has done it, although recently that's been my focus, lean muscle. He seems to have bulked up. Reports are somewhere in the neighborhood of 13 additional pounds. You would hope that that's a high percentage of muscle in there. I look at him. I think he looks good at the podium. Coaches seem to be saying the right things about him. And the Niners didn't do much at that position in bringing in Clelin Ferrell. I'm not even going to bring Austin Bryant into that same conversation because he could not make the cut in Detroit. I'm not saying he can't have a phenomenal breakout season in San Francisco. I'm just not counting on that. Clelin Ferrell making the next leap. He was already good against the run. I could see him improving against the pass with Chris Kosarek as his coach. But it feels like the Niners are really relying on Drake Jackson, and that must be because of the early work they saw him putting in the gym, in the offseason, staying there in Santa Clara. What's your impression of Drake Jackson? And is he going to hold down that side opposite of Nick Bosa?
It depends where the 13 pounds came from, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, did he lose 20 pounds and gain 13 pounds of muscle? Like, I hope so, because he was out of shape, to be honest with you. And that wasn't his fault. Well, I guess maybe that's probably his fault. But USC didn't treat him how you normally treat a person, right? Like, hey, be 270, now be 240, now be 265. Like, every year he was there, he was a different weight.
Yeah, that's tough.
Which is tough, right? Like, he didn't have direction. And then he was the top dog at USC, and you come into the Niners, you're not the top dog. You're not even top 2 or 3 dogs. You're barely in the kennel.
Yeah.
So
inactive for the last, 6 games of the season.
So are you ready to put up or shut up? And Aaron Banks was. Well, will Jackson do the same? By all accounts, he looks better.
Yes.
He looks, and not by just weight or visual. He's been getting a lot of pub from his teammates.
Yep.
And teammates usually do that during OTAs. So, that's not out of the ordinary. But there's been a couple players who have shouted him out outside of being asked about him. And that's something that you do take notice of, because most athletes don't want to just answer questions all day long about, right? Trent Williams said, hey, the quarterback situation is above his pay grade, even though he's making more than
he makes more than Kyle Shanahan.
Lynch and Shanahan together. He makes more than, and then he's like, oh, it's above my pay grade. So, like, players don't want to. That's
a vet response right there.
Yeah, they don't want to answer questions that put them in the hot seat. But
no.
So to go out of your way and say that Drake Jackson looks good, it must mean that he's doing a lot of things right, and hopefully he does. I mean, he's a second-round pick. He should have weight on this team, pun intended.
Yeah,
going forward.
My biggest question is, will he be able to set the edge? Will he earn that early down role that was Samson Ebukam's last year? That it seems, as of right now, for someone who's proven it in the league, you would think Clelin Ferrell might have the advantage, considering that was more of his strength with the Oakland Raiders, the ability to set the edge, the ability to stop the run. He was not criticized for his ability to do that. It was the lack of pass rush that really hurt. But the 49ers have been looking for more from that guy that plays on the early down. Samson Ebukam was good against the run, but did not add that much as far as a pass rusher. Outside of Nick Bosa, we just didn't have that complementary edge. We didn't have someone who could put up sack numbers. To me, if Drake Jackson is going to really prove himself this season, it's by earning the every down role. It's not just being a pass rush specialist. It is being able to be in there on early downs like Nick Bosa is, because on some of those early downs, you rack up a couple of those sacks. And if we want to see an 8, 9, maybe double-digit sack season from Drake Jackson or whoever is opposite of Nick Bosa, you got to have the reps. You got to be out there. Hopefully this weight is going to be beneficial in his ability to play against the run, be stout, and last the entire season, where people talk about him hitting the rookie wall after 8 or 10 games last year. Yeah,
it's something that is totally up to him. I think it really is up to him. And you look at what they talked about next year, the OU and Texas teams will be held to 8 games in the SEC. Is that really going to get their prospects ready for the NFL? Probably not.
No, less than half a season. That's rough.
Yeah, and then you have USC, who's not in the ideal conference. They were not a great team. That was before Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams went over there. And then now you have to go to a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. If Drake Jackson wasn't ready to answer the bell and he gets it right the second season, I'm not going to be mad at that. It's very rookie. Being a rookie is tough. You're not everybody's Nick Bosa. And so I think that the NFL is even tougher than college, and he wasn't ready to answer bell. Hopefully he is this season. And, I want him to get those aspirations that everybody does, right? Elite bend, get around the corner. And we saw with Aaron Banks, and hopefully we see it with Drake Jackson.
And the reality is that there are still a few of those names out there that are the veteran edge players that probably don't want to be there in training camp. They don't want to risk sustaining an injury before the regular season. They're vets. A lot of these guys are 34, 35, still contributing close to or double-digit sack seasons, often sack pass rush specialists. But if the Niners get into the preseason, Drake Jackson is out there. He doesn't quite look like the player they hope he would be in his second-year leap. Clelin Ferrell looks good, but not great. I could still see the Niners going out and adding to that depth at edge rusher, those veteran guys are always looking for an opportunity to win a ring, a big paycheck, or like a late signing so they don't have to go to training camp. And I don't blame them for any of those choices, but all of those lead you to the Niners as being a potential destination if there is the need. If Drake Jackson steps up, can set the edge, is playing all 3 downs, and Clelin Ferrell becomes a depth piece on that team, now you're talking about a pretty stacked edge rush class. If you've got question marks about both Ferrell and Drake Jackson, now at that point, I'm going to be pushing for the Niners to make some sort of a move, because when you added Javon Hargrave to the line, it felt like you could unlock a freaking super line that would just demolish opposing teams. You can't have a weak link along that line. So hopefully Drake Jackson is not a weak link. He's a second-year player that's ready to hit the ground running. I think we will see. Time will tell, like with the quarterback situation. We will see live bullets soon enough.
Yeah, I believe so as well, and we'll see how that turns out. I mean, we already have one of those veterans off the board, Frank Clark to the Broncos.
Right.
I don't know if I saw that, but I would say you look at Nick Bosa doesn't really say positive things about many people. He keeps his mouth shut most of the time. First practice already says he realizes that Hargrave's an all-pro and he knows why, but just by standing next to him. So
yeah, that's big.
I think it's going to be huge for the defensive line and take pressure maybe off of the Drake Jacksons and the Clelin Ferrells of the world.
Yes, indeed. Take that pressure off, because he's always getting the double team. This has been a phenomenal show, Randon. We have a few more topics that we will get to the next show. I promise everyone we'll be chopping it up. NYCE 1030, great show. As always, guys, appreciate y'all's commentary and perspectives. You know what we appreciate, NYCE 1030? Everybody who's there live in the chat, even when we disagree with the points that are made, the way in which you contribute to the show, the way in which you change the dialogue that Randon and I are having, the way in which you get us to answer questions we wouldn't have otherwise answered. I value the hell out of that. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone that is here. Papa Phil coming back in saying, cheers, take it easy, everyone. Glad to catch a live show. Glad to have you on. I loved Randon's rant today, and I like the interchange between the two of you, so I appreciate it. And Raphael 562 Niners always doing the nice thing. Randon, as always, an absolute pleasure having you on. A pleasure watching you rant. If we get more and more quarterback drama, I expect the rant to get ratcheted up, and it may just break the internet.
It hopefully does. And I do appreciate everybody in the chat. I really do. And like the fact that Papa Phil got me to point him out, you got me going. That's good. It's good back and forth.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys coming in.
I'm with you.
And spicing up the chat. Appreciate you guys.
Hell yeah. It's been a phenomenal show. Thank you, everyone, for hanging with us. If you didn't smash the like button earlier, hit it on the way out. We will be back. Papa Phil, nothing but love for you, Randon. Look at this. Positivity all the way around. Everybody loves that.
We're all going for the red and gold. So
that's right. We are bleeding red and gold until we're dead and old. And that's the way we are rolling out on this one. Thank you to everyone for being here. This show will be back next week. You will see myself and my co-host, Randon McMahon, there again. Go down to the description. Go follow and support Hockey Royalty. Maybe you don't even like hockey, but maybe it's because you haven't heard Randon talk about it yet. So go listen. Give it a whirl. There's good stuff coming up. We will be back. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And until next time, cheers, faithful.